How long did it take you to recover from the surgery?
Um, so they initially told me I should expect to be out of work at least 2 weeks and possibly longer. Um, I went home from the hospital. It was after I think 2 or 3 days, and I was in a lot of pain when I went home. Um, they gave me a prescription for, if I remember right, it was hydrocodone, but I didn't really like the way narcotics made me feel, so I just used ibuprofen, and I stayed on a couch for about, it was probably a week or so, and then I started to feel like I could get up and move some, and those first few days I was just kind of waddling to a laying position and trying not to move my body too much, and um, so I wasn't much use to my wife at that point. Um, I started doing things around the house after about a week. Found some limits because the body hadn't healed. So like little things that I you just kind of take for granted. I vacuumed, trying to help clean because I was home, and that almost put me in tears because once I got done, I realized how much things were moving around because they hadn't, kind of your internal organs have to reset.
Mhm.
And so just doing things like that caused a lot of pain. I went back to work after about 2 weeks. Um, it was probably it was probably right around the 2 week mark, and looking back, I was just I wasn't happy sitting at home. I didn't feel like I was doing anything. I didn't feel, and so I forced myself to go back to work. I think my body probably could have used a few more days of rest, but my mind could not. So it was 2 to 3 weeks before I was back active. I stopped doing things like lifting weights and stuff like that for probably 6 to 8 weeks. Um, and then once I was cleared by the doctors to go back and do physical activity like that, it took some time. I had some scar tissue that had built up in my abdominal area, and so certain movements would have a little bit of a pinch of pain or discomfort. Or there was a time where I was lifting weights and I felt a pop, and I was kind of worried. But talking to the doctors, they kind of said, "Well, that's just the scar tissue kind of delaminating and your body figuring out how to move again." So none of that was dangerous or bad, but I will say that the surgery was done at IU up in Indy, and they were great to deal with. So they had a hotline. So if I had any questions afterwards, I could call. So a few times, like when I had a pop, I'd call them, and they were really good about answering. But it took probably several months before I really felt more normal.
Anything else you would like to add before we finish up?
Encourage anyone considering it, to think about the quality of life of the person you might be helping. Um, I looked at my sister who was undergoing dialysis. It was 3 or 4 times a week. She was unable to really even hold down a steady job because of, the fact that she was on a dialysis machine for several hours each of those days and she was a young mother, and, you know, for me, that temporary pain or discomfort in trade for seeing her be able to live a more normal life,
Mhm.
um, that really isn't a question, and it's not something that you know I would even hesitate to do again if I had the ability to do so. So if someone's thinking about it, I'd highly encourage them to think about just the benefit you can provide to someone else.